topics, and I see Suzanne's making her way up. So I think we're going to start with legislative wrap-up, even though it's not quite wrapped up. So
Exactly.
Legislative almost wrap-up.
Well, I was hoping it would be a wrap-up.
So were they.
Good evening, members of the council. For the record, Suzanne Dale Esty, Economic Development Director here at the city, which includes managing the city's government relations. And yes, I had certainly hoped, and luckily the bets I placed were all informal, that the legislature would have adjourned, but they haven't yet. So I think, as you all know, the regular session finished March 8th, and the governor has declared a special session, which is currently underway. Today was day 8 of that special session. And in lieu of a more formal report with a PowerPoint, as I have typically done, and in fact, one year when we were in the same situation, I went ahead and did the PowerPoint with a couple of pendings in there. But there would be so many pendings because so many of our top priorities are still unresolved, that we decided to just make this a very brief update. And then I'll come back with a more formal PowerPoint so that the public in particular can be aware of what our priorities were and what we accomplished. And I believe there will be good news. So just to very briefly highlight where we are, again, the special session can be up to 30 days. And the main issue at hand, of course, is the operating budget. The state's operating budget is in the $30 billion range, and the disagreement is really about a $200 million difference at this point. You've probably been following the media accounts, but basically the main issues are what some call gimmicks. So the House striking budget, which has been passed, includes a delay in payment to the K through 12 education system by 1 day. The Senate bipartisan budget, which is the budget passed since we last met, there was what some have termed a coup, but a takeover by the Senate Republicans with 3 Democrats supporting their budget. And that includes what some term a gimmick of a delay in pension payments. So combining all of those, there's really only about a $200 million difference that is the dispute at hand, but it's still very much unresolved. The Senate Republicans did come out with a revised operating budget proposal last Thursday, and there were discussions today. The Republican negotiator, Senator Joe Zarelli, was out sick on Friday, and then there was just a meeting with Marty Brown today. So, so far, I'm not hopeful that it will be resolved this week, but hopefully within the 30-day window. Legislators are very interested in getting back home, and many of them are home if they're not negotiating, but they're interested in campaigning within their new districts, many of which are significantly larger and have new constituents to meet. So very briefly, you have before you what you've seen from me before, the state of play document. And just to quickly walk through that, we have 5 top priorities. Transportation solutions. And in that regard, the final transportation budget has been passed and does include $40 million in funding for the 167 to 405 connector, so the HOV to HOV connector. And that will be used for design and pre-construction work. And it's really important as we continue to try to get our needs addressed. We are making progress on the whole corridor, but most of the work in the near future will be done from Bellevue to Linwood. And so this $40 million appropriation will be really critical in keeping the momentum going and starting to address the needs down here on the southern end within King County. And Chair Cliburn did heroic work in getting that appropriation from savings along the corridor dedicated to this portion here in Renton. There are also, as you see before you, a number of grant programs to which we will be able to apply. $3.5 million in fiscal year 2013 and $10 million in 2013 to 15 for Transportation Improvement Board funding that, to which we can apply, and also some new Freight Mobility Strategic Investment Board funding to which we can apply. And then we hope that the capital budget will include $10 million for a new Main Street program, and we would be able to apply for that for the Sunset area, for Sunset Boulevard. One of the unresolved issues that is in the governor's proclamation, so is very much in play, is the local options transportation discussion, which we discussed as a group I think a couple weeks ago, and that bill was still being negotiated even today. The current proposal that was passed by the Senate and the House, but there's two different versions, so it went to conference and is still being negotiated. So the current proposal has King County only language that does include a motor vehicle excise tax increase of 1%, but it has to be voter approved. So what we'd been talking about earlier was a potential councilmanic action by the county council. And that was not, nor do I anticipate it going forward as councilmanic. Also included, which you all, I heard from you all and the administration, we are interested in, is the option, not the imposition, but the option to consider a $40 vehicle license fee for our significant needs here in our own community. And so thus far in that negotiation, the $40 VLF is included. Very briefly on fiscal stability, and again, I'll have final information on all of this when and if the legislature adjourns. They will eventually have to adjourn, but hopefully within the coming days. None of the budgets we've seen thus far from the legislature include cuts to the annexation assistance program. So the governor had proposed preliminarily an elimination of that program and then a 10% reduction, and none of the budgets thus far include that. So we're feeling pretty solid about the preservation of the funding for the areas that have already been annexed, as well as any potential future annexations. One item that's still very much in flux is liquor excise tax funding, and thus far, this is still a moving target as of the last few hours. The Senate Democratic budget only cuts liquor excise tax one time for 1 year. And then the House striker, so this is supported by the House and was negotiated with Senate Democrats. It makes these cuts one time only, so that was a significant point of progress. And then the Senate bipartisan, or what some call the Republican budget, had made the liquor tax, the excise tax cuts permanent, but we understand as of today that that was not intended. It's intended to be one time only. It would start July 1 of this year. So to that end, you have before you a letter signed by the Association of Washington Cities Board, and I was looking for your colleague's signature. I believe it's on here. I don't actually see it, but it's on here. And this really focuses on trying to make there I see it. Trying to make any cuts to programs such as the liquor funding, that what we call the state shared revenue, temporary and not permanent. Very briefly on economic development funding, it does appear, but again, I'd like to formally present this to you once the legislature has adjourned, that we're in a solid position with regard to capital budget funding. So it appears that thus far in the striking amendment, which is on the bar in the House and is agreed upon, that there will be $2,747,000 in stormwater funding for projects primarily in the Sunset area, and that will be a terrific momentum builder for our long sought work in the Sunset area. Also included in both capital budgets that we've seen in this striking amendment is $1.2 million for the Renton Housing Authority Kirkland Townhome project, also consistent with our Sunset Community Investment Strategy. That will be a significant boost to RHA's next effort in the Sunset area. And then on public safety, there's a very small grant program for gang prevention that's only in the House budget thus far. So we're hopeful that that will be included in a final operating budget, but that would be, again, a pool of funds to which we could apply for, that we would probably apply in collaboration with South County cities or other partners. And then finally, in strengthening the aerospace industry, the fifth of our top 5 priorities in our state legislative agenda. And as always, there's about 1,000 bills that we're tracking and others on which I could report, but these are our top priorities. It does appear, pending final passage of a capital budget, that we will receive an appropriation of $2.5 million for the Renton Aerospace Training Center. And the stars are aligning with the Chamber of Commerce's decision to move their headquarters to the train depot. This would all be pending any sort of a lease negotiation, but we would have a lease with Renton Technical College. They would be able to expand the aerospace training that is currently underway at Renton Technical College to the airport, which Boeing has been very interested in doing, and the chamber headquarters location could be a very prime location for that. So we're very excited about that. And then there's a few different bills related to the aerospace industry that have passed, and the governor actually signed into law today the bill that will allow for students to apply for the 3-year loan for that same aerospace training program at Renton Technical College. That bill had died. I think I've talked with you all about that, and Representative Maxwell, Senator Prentice, a number of legislators were very helpful in finding another, what they call, legislative vehicle that bill could be attached to, and the governor signed House Bill 2156 into law today, which includes Renton Technical College's access into that aerospace loan program. So that was a great partnership effort on which we were very supportive. And the RTC president, Steve Hansen, was there for the signing with the governor today. A bill that the Boeing company was very interested in, and we actually would take advantage of with regard to fecal coliform and stormwater, has been delivered to the governor, and a bill to create the Joint Center for Aerospace Technology Excellence, and to include, we need funding for it, $1.5 million, but significant enhancements to research and engineering in our 4-year institutions also is proceeding, and it appears that the funding is solid for that as well. So more to come. That's a quick gloss through of our top priorities. I believe we are very well positioned, but we just need some compromise and closure, and then I'll be back to you with a final report. Any questions?
Questions from council? Don?
Yes, in the paper today they mentioned, the governor said that if she didn't get a budget pretty soon, there was some bills that she would veto. Do you have any idea what those are?
I do. One was mentioned in yesterday's paper, and the governor ended up signing it today. I think it's 5384 that was very important to 6384, which lets people with developmental disabilities transition into community access programs after they enroll in an employment program. That was one that unfortunately had become wrapped up in this, and she has opted to sign that and has not held it hostage, as they say. So again, there were some bill signings today, And so far, even though she'd made that threat, it's not being carried out.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Corman.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased to hear that the annexation funding remained intact. And I guess I'd be curious as to your overall feelings about whether that's would be a perpetual risk. Will we see that proposed again next year, that kind of thing? I know you don't have any way of knowing for sure, but kind of what are your instincts about that?
My instincts are that we're in a very solid position. There were about 60 legislators who were adamantly opposed to any changes to this program, who really listened to cities. And we had quite a coalition of cities from Pierce, King, and Snohomish counties who said, look, we have participated in this program in good faith, or we intend to, or we have these annexations that we're still very interested in considering. And so the fact that it literally wasn't on the table in discussions at the legislative level, I think puts us in a strong position. Of course, there's nothing definitive. There was discussion prior to the session about some sort of what we called assurance legislation. And every other constituency relevant in Olympia said, well, we would love to have assurance legislation. It's just really not part of the reality there. They budget on a 2-year cycle. And even though there are efforts to look ahead longer term, as you all do, that's really not part of the framework there. And given the dire choices they've had to make, that we couldn't even find a sponsor for assurance legislation that would give, a long-term, signed on the dotted line commitment to that funding. But I think we're in a very solid position.
Okay. And can I ask a related question? I wonder if the other council members or staff remember when that West Hill discussion comes back to us.
So there is not a designated moment in time. I would defer to CAO Jay Covington about any proposal to have another discussion. There is a measure on the ballot for November, and thus far that date is still set.
I see.
I think that's where we are. So
Okay.
if there's any discussion that needs to be had before then, we would need to schedule that.
Okay.
But we would recommend certainly waiting until the special session has adjourned and we have assurance at least on the existing state of play.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. And probably still don't know, but it's a little better feeling about that. Okay.
I think I'm trying to remember when the cutoff is for items for the November ballot, whether that's August or October.
Typically
August,
about 90 days out.
Yeah, so probably
and there's
August.
some room there.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Suzanne.
You're very welcome. I'm sorry that it's not a final report or a wrap-up, but I'll be back.
You did what
Mr.
you
President?
could.
Yeah, I would like to say it sounds like things are going amazingly well for the city, especially under the circumstances. So
Absolutely.
thank you for your leadership there.
You're very welcome.
Our next topic is the Garden Avenue update, and I think that would be Greg Zimmerman.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President and members of the Committee of the Whole. I'm Greg Zimmerman, Renton's Administrator of the Public Works Department. And just take you a little back in time. As you'll recall, a few months ago, the city fared very well in the Transportation Improvement Board competition for grant funding. We acquired significant grant funding for 2 projects that were very much in need of grant funding. One, of course, was the Southwest 27th Strander project, enabling us to move forward with construction. And the second project, which was a delightful, somewhat of a surprise, also got funding, was the Garden Avenue South Lake Washington project, which is a very important project, as you know. And the purpose of the project is to open up some capacity at the intersection of Garden and Logan Avenue and also Lake Washington Boulevard by making some key improvements there. We are posed to open up the bids for that project tomorrow, and there's been, as you all know, significant public interest in the project. So at your request, and we think it's timely and a good idea, to provide an informational briefing to you on some of the main things that we're going to be doing with that particular project. I have Bob Hansen, the Transportation Systems Design Supervisor, along with James Wilhoit, who's the project manager for the project, here with me. And we prepared a PowerPoint presentation that Bob is going to present to you with some graphics showing the project and the key features that we're going to be doing. So with that, I'm going to call Bob up to the podium, and he'll provide the presentation.
Council, I'm going to jump in real quickly just so there's no confusion. On our agenda shows a committee report coming out on this topic. This is not for action. This is briefing only.
Good evening. A few years ago, two and a half years ago, we were looking at options as to what the city should do at Lake Washington Boulevard, where it intersects with the entrance to Southport, and how it interacts with Park Drive / Logan and Garden Avenue. And we discovered that when you take into account all the development that has been approved or will be approved for the full build out of the landing and Southport, that we had a traffic problem at that intersection. And one scenario had traffic backed all the way up to Edmonds Avenue. And we realized that something had to take place there to alleviate that problem in the future. The main feature of what we did was to provide for a 2-lane left turn from Logan to northbound Lake Washington Boulevard. This project excuse me, will enhance vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian connectivity and improve safety and aesthetics. But it's mainly for the improvement of capacity of the Logan Avenue, Garden / all 4 of them intersection. When we started the landing project, as you may remember, we shut off Park Drive and diverted all traffic down Garden. At the time, Garden was a 4-lane facility, and we changed it to 3 lanes so that you'd have wide enough lanes for trucks to use, and then a left turn lane where you could be protected for your left turn movements. And it turned out very well. Here's a photo of the intersection, and the features, the project elements are mainly on Garden Avenue. We widen it from the intersection with Logan, Park Drive, down to 10th. And it will be 4 lanes between those 2 intersections. One of those lanes, northbound, is going to exit in a protected left turn move into the entrance between the 2 apartment complexes. So when you're northbound on Garden, you will be able to get into the apartment complexes. Then that lane goes forward, and it becomes 2 lanes as it approaches Logan, with 1 lane being dedicated right turn lane. The left lane serves as a through lane, or it goes right or left at that intersection. The widening of Logan is mainly on the north side up here, so that there's a bicycle lane right here, and it will be provided for continuation through the intersection and then down on the west side of Logan as it leaves the site. Garden Avenue has already been widened 4 feet on the west side, and that was done by the apartment house developers. What we have left is the widening on the east side, and that widening, we call it 4 feet, but it's the curb varies, and the width of the widening varies between 3.5 and 3.75 feet. This is Lowe's over here, and this is the apartment complex. This is a channelization plan. Again, it's just simply a construction drawing. I don't know how much it means to you, but you can see the dedicated right turn from westbound Park Drive, the 2 lanes left to southbound Garden, the 2 lanes northbound, 1 going east and 1 through or right and left, and then the 2 left turn lanes eastbound on Logan. When we get down to 10th, this is 10th right here. As we leave 10th, there's a 2-lane approach here with 1 lane turning to the left into the parking garages, as I mentioned before.
Mr. President.
Go ahead, Mr. President. Taylor.
Bob, could you, just for those folks who are at home looking at this and, wondering the orientation, I know the orientation, but just to the bottom here would be Fry's. Is that correct? If you could just kind of point that out.
Fry's is down here.
Yeah, and then up above would be
Lowe's
Target.
is here.
Right.
The apartment complex is here, and Target and
Right.
their parking lot is over here. This is 10th. This is the north arrow,
Thank you.
kind of down to the right. And this is just a continuation to show how it approaches the intersection. This is a photograph of on the west side of Garden looking north. You can see the improvements that have already been installed, and you can see the signal bridge that has been there for all these years and serves to hold banners for different events in the city. And that's going to go. It's going to go away, and it'll be replaced with mast arm assemblies and signals hanging from those assemblies. The problem is that right now, that signal bridge has no more capacity on it, and we need some more capacity to provide for the movements that are being planned. This is looking northbound on Garden on the east side, and you see that there is some asphalt here on the east of the curb. The curb is right here, and it will be widened at this pole about 3.5 feet. There'll have to be a vehicle protection provided at this point. This is the same place looking south. You can see the large power pole that was there and has now been relocated in advance for this project. This project also involves art. And there's a piece of art out next to Carco Theater that is kind of stuck out in the middle of the woods, and I guess not many people are aware of it there. But there wasn't a lot of money for the arts in this project, but enough money to provide the relocation of this piece of art into a more prominent location in the city, which would be in the northwest quadrant of that intersection. And so when you're coming down the hill, off of Park Drive, you'll see it on the right-hand side And I don't know, I kind of like this art, some people don't, but I think it's going to look great at that location. This is the project estimate. There's been about $400,000 spent in the design of this project. Construction will be $2.1 million. Contingency, we have about a 10% contingency and a provision for $300,000 for construction management for a total project cost of $3 million. The city of Renton is putting $1.25 million into this project, and the TIB grant is for $1.75 million for the total of $3 million. Because of some of the things that have to happen here, like the overlay and the pavement marking and the removal of the sign bridge has to happen at night when there isn't traffic. And so there will be some limited night work, and we've begun our process with Neil Watts to obtain that variance. We expect no more than 10 nights at the outside of night work, and it probably won't be all night long. It'll just be to get the stuff done. Do you have any questions?
So I'm assuming when you widen on the low side there, that you're going to have to put some kind of retaining wall? A low retaining wall? You're going to just be able to grade it down to?
No, you saw that existing asphalt sort of walkway there?
Yes.
Our widening will take out that walkway, but the curb won't go as far as the edge of that walkway.
Oh, okay. So it's really the sidewalk that's going away, not any of the landscape.
Right, and the sidewalk has already been replaced. We worked with Lowe's when they were doing their project, and they had a problem because of the elevation difference between the street and the store.
Yeah, because they have the sidewalk up higher, right?
And they were trying to figure out how to get down to that sidewalk and meet accessibility requirements. And we were trying to figure out how in the heck to get a sidewalk in after we had widened the street.
Yeah.
Out
So
48
you're taking
feet.
it away and it's no problem then?
So we met with them and we asked them for a sidewalk easement on their property. They built the sidewalk and we've obtained the easement. James had to go after them just recently to get it. And there was also, you may recall, a storm drainage easement at that location, and they had asked us for a relaxation of that because they needed it to get the footprint of the building in that they wanted on that site. And so, you know, ours happened after we gave them theirs, but they remembered it, and they worked quite nicely with us.
Good. So actually a lot of this was kind of in the works when they were putting in their buildings.
Yeah, it's been in the works for several years now, and you know, the working out of the sidewalk work on the west side with Fairfield. It's something that it worked out better for them to do it because they had a bunch of work that needed to get done in there, and they were tearing everything up there, so it just was timely for them to install it. They installed it according to our plans. Their widening on that side only goes down as far as the driveway between the two buildings, and then it comes out 4 feet, but we still have room for our project.
Mr. President?
Mr. Taylor.
Bob, can you talk a little bit about the impacts and how they're going to be mitigated as it relates to the residents that are going to, you know, come out of the Kennedale area, the Lake Washington area in the morning to access freeways, and also the businesses as people are trying to, you know, come down off the freeway to get into the landing? I know you've got a strategy here, but could you talk a little bit about that so that we can see how that's going to work?
Probably the movement that created the most problem for us was the traffic coming down from the east on Park Drive. There's a significant amount of traffic that needs to make a left turn to go to the businesses at the Landing, Lowe's, and Fry's. And so there's a 2-lane left turn as there is today. And that is projected to serve the city for the next 20 years at least.
I understand that. I'm speaking specifically about the construction process.
During construction.
Okay.
During construction, while we're doing the widening on Garden, there will have to be some relocation of that traffic over to Park Avenue to go north, because the northbound traffic is going to be severely impacted during the period of time that we're removing the curb on the east side and moving it to the east. It's going to amount to 2-3 weeks of impact, and but that traffic will probably naturally find its way over there because of delays of going northbound on Garden. As far as the traffic on Park Drive and Logan, we are able, by moving lanes around during construction, to keep all the lanes open for traffic and still be able to work during the day. We've worked that out with WashDOT. This area happens to be within, at least the intersection is within a limited access right-of-way for 405. And so everything we do has to get the blessing from the state, especially in terms of when we get to work on it and the channelization. This doesn't happen to be a state route, but it's on limited access and they control it. We have begun a process of of converting that right-of-way to just about to the beginning of the bridge over the railroad and Hauser Way.
Right.
Of converting that to city right-of-way and out of limited access.
Right.
But I don't think that will occur in time for it to benefit this project.
Will there be any possibility of it being having access to it in the process of working out the right-of-way end of it?
Access to
the Hauser Way that you bypass, yeah, as you go behind the, underneath the freeway around the backside of Fry's there.
there's the possibility of going southbound as there is today. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work that has to be done on Hauser Way before it could become two-way. It's one of the things we were looking at when we were examining the options that were available to us. As you're probably aware, WashDOT fairly soon, I don't know when, but in the foreseeable future, plans on removing the tunnel at the south end of that and redirecting that traffic. And then there's that Texas T that goes into 405 off of 8th. And so Hauser Way in the future doesn't look very promising as an alternative to going through, say, Logan or Park.
Okay. Thank you.
John.
The funding, I just want to, all the funding that's coming from this, when you talk about the TIB, that's the Transportation Improvement Board, and that's, I think that's federal money and gas tax money coming from that.
It's state money.
But it's basically state money to do this. And then the other money that we're putting up is dedicated funds from the gas tax and our business license fees that can only be used for transportation projects. So it's not like we're doing a road, taking $3 million out of the general fund that we could use for other projects. I mean, these are funds that have to be used for road projects, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I think it's important that public understands that we're using $3 million, but it's not money that we could be using for something else.
Look at Marcy.
I just want to clarify a couple of the differences. One of them will be that that north driveway into Lowe's, there where you can load your lumber and so on, that will no longer exist.
The driveway will exist.
It will.
But it'll be right in, right out only.
Right in, right out.
You won't be able to go southbound
Okay.
on Garden and turn left into the driveway, and you won't be able to leave southbound out of there. You'll have to go through the parking lot down to the signal at 10th.
Okay. And then another difference will be going northbound there past Lowe's. At that point, we'll have 2 right lanes going around the corner, going up the hill.
There will be 1 lane dedicated to that.
Right, like there is today.
And the second lane, the left-hand lane, you'll have your choice. You can go through, right, or left.
Right, which is different than now. 'Cause
Actually,
right now you have to go straight or turn left
that's
onto
right.
Logan.
However, there are some people that avail themselves of the right turn there.
But it should help alleviate that backup that we get today that goes
Yes.
clear back to Fry's on Saturdays almost continually because everyone's trying to be in that 1 lane.
Yes.
And then the other change will be as you're coming eastbound from Logan and you want to turn onto Lake Washington Boulevard. Right now there's 1 turn lane to
Yes.
the left and there will be 2.
That's correct.
And the way you're doing that is to take out that berm where
Well, there's about a half a lane there now that's just got
Right.
crosshatching in it. And so we're widening to the north, we're moving that curb and gutter to the north and making up for that the half lane, so we have 2 lanes left turn, and then a little bit more, another 5 feet for a bike lane, so it's continuous from Lake Washington Boulevard.
right, because right now that backs up to the theater sometimes.
Yes.
Going that way. So when it's done, in what, October, hopefully?
We're looking at completion in November.
November.
We should be starting construction late April, early May, and be completed with everything by November.
And so when that's done, it will improve the traffic flow
Of course.
through there.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted the community to know that. I know that. I've been watching, listening.
Rich? I want to follow up on a comment that I may have misunderstood that you said, but did I understand when we were talking about Hauser Way that the state is thinking about doing away with the tunnel under Sunset to Hauser Way?
That's correct.
That's the first I've heard of that. I mean, it's that's going to have a big impact.
That's one of the options that the state's looking at when they do the expansion of I-405, some of the issues that they were looking at in their charrettes and so forth. So it's certainly not funded, it's certainly not on, we don't know when it's going to happen, and we're going to have some input before those type of decisions are made. But it's one of the ideas they were looking at for the eventual widening of 405 going north. It's not an independent project, it's part of that project.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'm concerned because of the number of people that use that to get not only to landing but to Boeing's and to Packard and
even on the Sunset.
and
Use it all.
Sunset. I mean, that's going to take some.
Yeah, it's a great way to go.
So are you saying it would no longer be a through to Sunset?
If
the
they
tunnel-
follow the plan that they've shown me, it would no longer go through.
That's a shame.
Well, I hopefully, and I'm, like I've told a lot of people, we're still looking 20 years away before they ever get enough money to do that part of 405 unless something really comes up. So it's not something that's going to happen
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Tomorrow, or I don't even see it. Like I say, I think it's at least 20 years out. But I think it's something that's worth raising a concern about, because those are major employers, and how are we going to get those people to work? Is my concern as it goes ahead. And like I say, I think we got a lot of time, and hopefully we'll have a lot of conversations.
Well, we know PACCAR is going to be doing some significant expansion, which will make it tougher.
Yeah.
So what I'd propose to do is, we're quite a ways off from seeing that project funded, and certainly many years off, as you suggest, Councilman Person, to actually seeing that construction done. So certainly we will be talking to the council as that work proceeds and the planning effort moves forward. It's nothing in the imminent future, so people don't have to be concerned about it right at this time.
Randy?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, those are good questions, and I'd forgotten that Hauser, I probably saw those layouts at one point, and that Hauser was jeopardized, but I want to say, I remember I was on council when we were trying to get the $3 million to do that improvement, and but really with the layouts the way they are now, I mean, there's a lot of impacts to our surface streets, so if that ever happens, I think other parts of Hauser and other parts of Sunset are completely obliterated, and yeah, we need to do a lot of work to our transportation system in the context of that 405 widening.
Right.
So this is probably just one more thing, but
yeah, absolutely. There's quite a bit of, as you say, along the whole extent, there's quite a bit of impact. The final project is a very good project, but it has a lot of different impacts that will have to be worked through along the surface streets and the neighborhoods fronting 405. So certainly if the momentum moves forward and if funding gets put into the project, we'll be back talking about that, and we'll be out in the community as well. But that's not happening yet, and the state's not even actively working on the design or the planning of it at this point.
yeah.
Mr. President.
Mr. Taylor?
Bob, can you just talk a little bit about, first, when does the project begin, and leading up to the beginning of the project, what steps are you taking to engage the businesses in terms of what's going to happen, and the types of mitigation plans, strategies that you're going to use to reduce impact for customer access?
We have met already with the people at the apartment complex, and so they know what our schedule is and they know what the impacts are going to be. We have met with the management at Lowe's and explained to them what's going to happen, and we will now have very shortly after tomorrow, hopefully, have a contractor in tow that will put together a schedule, and once his schedule's in place, we will go out and actively engage all the people there. We have updated our webpage on this project so that if you go to our major projects on the webpage, you will find out what our schedules are there and how it may affect you. But the people who will be most directly affected, we will be talking to them directly, probably in the form of an open house at the as soon as we get a contractor with a schedule.
And what is the projected time frame to start the project?
We expect to start the project end of April, beginning of May sometime, so we're getting very close, month and a half. That's kind of an optimistic view, probably be in middle of May or later.
Okay.
Mr. President, would you remember to keep the Kennydale Neighborhood Association in the loop? They have their quarterly newsletter will go out in a couple of weeks. So
Okay.
anything that you can let them know to publish, that goes out to, I think, about 1,200 homes.
Yeah, I'm scheduled to meet with them on the 24th of April.
Of April. Is that their quarterly
Yes.
meeting? You're going to be back? Yeah, okay, great.
Good.
Thank you. Would you mind also emailing that to Julia? So I'd love to have your presentation to be able to show people as they ask questions. You can talk about it, but with your pictures and all there, it's very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like a copy also.
Just to all council.
Yeah,
and
give all of us a copy of it.
Julie.
We're also updating the description of the project, have been updating it on the city website. If you go to the transportation design portion of our website, there is a information article about this particular project. I'm not sure if they have the graphic in there yet. I've got to check. I'd ask them, our staff, to put the graphic in, but that's coming if it's not in yet, so people will have more information about that project on our website.
Any other questions from council?
Just comment that you guys have done a great job, and we appreciate you taking, the Transportation Committee's looked at this, and they've taken our comments under advisement and altered the project somewhat. One of the key things was maintaining the turning movements off of Garden, various directions, to help satisfy Kennydale neighborhood, make sure people could go straight home and things like that. So thank you for all that. Looks like it's going to be really good.
We've gotten great input from the council and the committee on that project, so it's really helped optimize the project.
I would just like to add that, given the popularity of our Coulon Park, that will come in really handy once that gets put into place.
Yeah.
We get a lot of traffic there at certain times of the year.
Yeah.
That creates a lot of the traffic gridlock all by itself.
It does.
Yeah, and on those nice weekends, the Lowe's gets really busy, and it's going to help with that a lot too, I think. So.
Or when fishing season starts.
Yeah. Very good.
With that, we'll adjourn committee of the whole, reconvene at 7 o'clock for council.